everyone would rise for the pledge, please. Okay, Mr. Auditor, if you would like to call the roll.
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Thacker, Ms. Thies,
Here.
Mr. Norris,
Here.
Ms. Wager,
Here.
Ms. Alsop, Mr. Loudermilk.
Here.
And at this time, if we have any communications from elected officials, other officials, and/or agencies of the county.
Good evening. Mike Morris, Eagle County Commissioner. Recently, we were able to get $87,000 back from the Duke Energy for energy-saving things from the jail, and we deposited that into, that was deposited in County General. Like to, maybe next month, request that money for pay for the telephones and electricity around here.
How much was that, Mike?
$87,000.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Do you have any other communications from other elected officials? Okay. All right, we'll have the first reading by summary and reference of proposed ordinances and resolutions. First, we'll have additional appropriation 2023-54 lit PSAP contractual office furniture equipment new. Additional appropriation 2023-55 emergency 911 licenses contractual and equipment new. Additional appropriations 2023-56 edit maintenance building new. Additional appropriation 2023-57 ARPA grant fund maintenance building new. Additional appropriation 2023-45 ARPA grant fund recreational trails project. Additional appropriation 2023-51 ARPA grant fund Thrive West Central project for housing. Additional appropriation 2023-58 ARPA grant fund Rose Holman Rose Ventures relocation. Salary ordinance 2023-59A E911 adjusts pay rates. And last one, amended 2023 Vigo County salary ordinance. Okay. Do I have any reports from committees at this time? Anything from budget before I state about? Okay, still progressing. For the salary committees that met and tried to work on some of the final things, we'll address that at the end when our attorney addresses that with our new salary ordinance, and we'll discuss it at that time. Okay, resolutions and ordinances other than appropriations, we have none. And ordinances relating to appropriations, old business. First on the agenda, we have additional appropriation 2023-44 lit correctional rehab supplement to drug courts. This is one that had been tabled for this month, and we are bringing back to address. And I believe Judge Newton is coming forward, unless he's just moving, but he's on the move. Good evening.
We are here together tonight, and we're working on a new plan. Many of the services that are offered through the drug court also are offered through the Veterans Court, and many things evolve and change, and we felt that it was best to streamline and try to look for new sources of revenue, and we think we've had some good responses as far as some grants and things that are out there that we could possibly use for this next year. but we're hoping that we can have this appropriation to carry this out through the rest of this year to ensure that the people that are there in the drug court, that this continues. It's a great program. I've had the opportunity to sit in on that, and it's very impressive that the people are just doing very well. There are some people, of course, that have hiccups now and then, but that's to be expected. But this is really a necessity to keep that court functioning, and we're asking for that appropriation.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from the council? Okay, thank you, and I appreciate your patience
All
on
right,
this.
thank you.
and Look forward to voting on it next week. Okay, for new business, first on the agenda, and I have a feeling our commissioners are gonna be addressing some of these. Additional appropriation 2023-54 lit PSAP contractual office furniture and equipment new, and we have Commissioner Klinkenbeard. Is anyone else coming
Good
up?
evening.
Good evening.
Council. Mark Klinkenbeard, Vigo County Commissioner, and with me is Jeff Fox. Last month, the council passed a resolution of support for our plan to relocate E911 emergency services to the Community Corrections Building, and we thank you for that. Since that time, we have completed our estimates and are asking for an appropriation of $893,275 to complete the work. In your packet, you will find a detailed estimate put together by Jeff. I want to thank Jeff for all his hard work in getting us to this point. He spent numerous hours getting us here. On another note, Jeff will be overseeing this project with my help. Because of this, we will save the county approximately $90,000 in general contracting fees. Tomorrow, maintenance crew, along with the clerk's office, will complete the moving of files in the storage area. We anticipate actual construction to start September 11th and still hope for completion by the end of the year. Would you like to add anything, Jeff?
No, I think Commissioner Klinkenbeard has summarized our progress. It's going very well. We've had first meeting of contractors to establish timelines and those kind of things. Currently, the only thing that really is up in the air about the project is the HVAC piece. Those pieces of equipment may or may not be delayed, but that is really the only component that we've heard back from any of the contractors that would concern us as far as timeline for the project. Other than that, it doesn't seem like we have a supply chain issue other than those issues. So we're pleased to report the progress is being made and look forward to your support with the continuation and the funding of the project.
Do we have any questions from the council? On the HVAC equipment, will that, is that the move still able to take place if that equipment doesn't arrive, or?
We haven't got that deep yet, to be honest with you. When we had first meeting, they were still identifying their vendors for that equipment, and so we need to circle back to it. Just so that you understand the need, that will need to add air conditioning units for the operations center, so where the dispatchers are actually located, because of the amount of equipment and personnel. So that will take an additional amount, and then also to isolate the equipment area for communications, IT, all those kind of things. So those rooms will have redundant. We don't intend to certainly abandon the current building layout, but just simply in those two areas really double it. It's but I can't honestly tell you where that piece will fit in and whether it can delay. Certainly, if the contractor says we can work around it, we'll certainly try to do that. But if it's something where that's a kind of a piece of equipment that's going to have to go in, because they have to tear the ceiling out or something like that, then that may challenge us. But I got my fingers crossed that we can work through it.
Yeah.
I know that they are looking very closely at all their vendor options. I know that the electrical piece was another one that initially were concerned, and they were able to fulfill the supply chain with using a different vendor. So I'm optimistic, but we'll have to wait and see.
Well, and I personally want to thank you, and I'm sure others would support, the fact that you guys are taking the general like contractor work on and saving the county money and the process and probably helping to speed things along as well. So I truly appreciate that you guys are doing
Glad
that.
to do it. Thank you.
Okay. New business, we'll go to the next one. Additional appropriations, 2023-55 E911 licenses, contractual, and equipment new. And I assume
Same.
Commissioner Klinker-Beard again.
That first spiel was for everything.
Covered all of
It
them?
covered everything, yes.
Okay, so
I
that.
hope so, anyway.
Okay, so that also covered then additional appropriation 23, I think it's just from different funds, 2023-56 edit. Oh, no, that's a new one. Maintenance building, it's the same one too. Maintenance building new. Okay, so is that different? That's different. Okay.
It's
Yep.
just being split between the two different funds. We contacted 911 to see what could be paid out of that fund.
Okay,
instead of being
gotcha.
able-
Yep.
So that's
Okay.
the split between them.
So that is me again. Tyler, if you'd like to come
Thank you.
forward if we have any questions. Again, thank you, council, for having us. Mark Klinkenbeard, Vigo County Commissioner. Tonight, the commissioners are asking for an appropriation of $1,536,000 to build a maintenance/storage facility on the southwest corner of the new jail property. This facility will house county storage, county morgue, sheriff's department garage, and a building maintenance shop. We believe that this building is the most cost-effective way to handle these immediate and long-term needs. If you look in your packet, you'll notice that we did make a few changes to the square footage. We made the sheriff's garage a little bit smaller and county document storage a little bit bigger. Just to note, the morgue space will have 960 square feet, sheriff's garage 1,920 square feet, document storage 2,496 square feet, and the building maintenance shop 1,536 square feet. We propose paying for half with ARPA funds and half through edit. And Tyler Claypool with Garmong is here, and we also have other people that will be using this facility, various departments, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so that covers both that appropriation in 2023-45 using the ARPA funds, as Commissioner Klinkenbeard had said. Does anyone have any questions for either the people who will benefit or about the building itself? Councilman Loudermilk.
Do we have a breakdown on what the cost will be for each of the uses, each of the 4 uses? Can we get that?
We can provide that, yeah.
I did get the square footage so you can see that. Obviously, storage space would be the least expensive.
Sure.
But then from there you would go to probably the sheriff's department garage and morgue space, et cetera. But
I
we
guess
can
that
get
would
that for
just,
you.
that would be nice to see what that looks like. I mean, we've talked about before, we went from a $75,000 project to $1.5 million real quick. We'd like to see what each of those proposed uses would look like.
Sure, we can do that. And again, that's one of the reasons that we downsized the sheriff's department garage. That still gives them one bay and then one bay with a lift. And also allowing us, we found that we have even more need for document storage. So we will put that to good use. And again, that's another reason kind of we went with some ARPA funds on this also to help pay for it.
Does the sheriff's office not currently have a lift in one of the garage bays at the sheriff's department?
I don't know if anybody else is here from their department. Derek could not make it tonight. I believe they do, but I believe that is for investigating, a vehicle that had to do with a crime. This would be to change oil, brakes, minor maintenance, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Evidence bay. I just couldn't find the word.
I could be wrong on this, but I think that they had shared too, that they had been using other space, I think possibly at one of the schools.
Yes,
to
they've
do
been
it,
using
and-
West Vigo High School.
Yeah, and so, and those programs, just from being in the schools, are continuing to grow with dual credit opportunities through Ivy Tech. So I'm wondering if the space issue there is becoming something too. I'm, from what I remember.
If I could just add one thing,
Yeah.
because it does benefit our office, and I mentioned this the last time, is that if it is divided up by the storage and they could put the public defender at a certain square footage, then I can submit that to commission for reimbursement for the construction of that. I think that's a good idea. If we could separate it out, then I can have the commission come, view the plans, and then tell us how much we'll get reimbursed over how many years.
Okay. Thank you. Jim?
So I'd like to say that I'm going to submit Gretchen Etling for Queen of Reimbursement at the end of the year.
I accept the nomination.
Well, and I think too, as we look ahead and are dealing with some current issues, being proactive, even if we have a little bit of, cases are going to continue to happen, things are going to continue to happen, and trying to be proactive, I think is good as we're doing this. So I appreciate your help on this as well. So, any other questions from the council? We all good?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Now on to some of the ARPA grant funds. The first one we will have is additional appropriation 2023-45 ARPA grant fund for recreational trails project. I was gonna say, there you are. I didn't see Adam, and we'll be hearing from Adam Grossman.
Adam Grossman, Superintendent, Vigo County Parks. If I realized there were so many people here, I put better clothes on.
You are fine. You are fine.
You should all have a packet in front of you. Myself, the commissioners, and our fearless engineer have worked hard on a linear park trails package for ARP money. As soon as I get there myself. And I'll do this quickly before everybody runs me out of here. But starting with the Riley Spur. You guys have heard about the Riley Spur before. This money, $525,000, would pave from Llama to Canal at about 1.6 miles. Also paying for benches and lighting, all the amenities along with that. We're still working on the head trail for that. That will really springboard that in. You can see on the next couple pages. Thrive West Central was good enough to send me over a map. Vermilion, Clay, Sullivan, Park counties. You can see Vigo County is the hub for all trails. So any of these legs that we can get started is really going to be behoove us to get these done. And we're dangerously close to being able to have a lot of these connections to other counties. So having Vigo County as the hub for all this is going to be an awesome economic benefit, but awesome for health and wellness as well. The health department's helped us with R2P grant and that trail. We're going to open that September 30th. Unfortunately, Vigo County doesn't rank very high in health and wellness. So through COVID and all kinds of other reasons, we've seen an abundance of use in parks, open space. We love to see that. A good addition was that pedestrian walkway. We see people on it we've not seen on any of our trails, and it's used every day, every night. Parking lot's full. Awesome. We can build on that. So the Riley Spur, I've also on your third page printed off the Vigo County Trails Crossroad Trails app that shows you current trails. The Riley Spur down here in gray, I've kind of dotted out for you a future Share the Road trail, which will then not deadhead in Riley, but will create a loop. VCPRD currently owns a lock property there in Riley. So we're looking to open that up as a park and a destination along that trail as well. Once all of this Riley Spur is done, that's going to be a trail that's going to be talked about not just in Indiana. There's going to be people coming here to, that's going to be a really neat trail system. So to get started on that, that's what we're asking for out of this and start to get it established. Unless there's any questions on that, I'm going to move to the next one.
Will that head up to the Erie Canal area, like this side?
This stretch parallels the old Wabash and Erie Canal between Llama and
That's what I was thinking.
pretty much down through there. And also last night at the Riley Town Board, they agreed that we could have a trailhead at their town hall building, which is quite nice, and nice new parking lot there. So they've agreed to accommodate us on that too.
That's good. Any questions from the council?
I just have a brief question, just out of curiosity. The demographic that would use this trail, you're talking about people coming out of town, is it the same population that would use the bike park as well?
Yeah, a lot of people are coming in. It's road bikers and mountain bikers, kind of a little different people. So we definitely get a different clientele coming to the bike park than you would for road bikes or hiking, walking, things like that. So they really kind of cater to two different groups.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
Yep. And that was the piece I was waiting to hear, if we had our head trail or not, so.
Yeah, recently there was a annual get-together at the at Brownsburg on the B&O Trail. There was 700 people came in for a ride there. There was another one just this Monday out at a little town called North Salem. There's probably 300 bikers that attended that too. So, and so.
Awesome. Oh, geez, they're on all sides of me.
Sorry, I just want to add one thing. We do have, as far as this connection, like Adam said, it connects from Canal to Lama, or Louisville Road to Lama. We have submitted a next level trails application to the state of Indiana to extend that from Lama into the city of Terre Haute to 7th Margaret. We are
Which is
working
the
on
big
that as
goal.
well. Yeah.
Do we know when we'll hear from that, Larry?
Hopeful end of November, 1st of December. That's when they came out last year.
Oh, what about Ray Park? Go ahead.
It also encompasses a connection to Ray Park with a loop around Ray Park as well with that application.
Mike, use the mic, thanks.
And then when you look at the Friends of Ray Park and what the city has planned for Ray Park, it makes it all the more desirable. Adding pickleball courts, new tennis courts, revamping the golf course, putting in an exterior track, looking at putting in an athletic facility, all the more reason for people to get out, get on their bikes, walk, and go to places that are pleasant and increase our quality of life.
And that'll be safer too for the students that run, probably just to have some access, because a lot of South High School uses that as well, so.
Thank you for the help.
Good.
Appreciate it.
Good.
Also built into this is Arbor Vitae is what this picture is of. There were some citizens along that corridor concerned with being able to visually see into their yards, so we've also built into that being able to either plant these or some kind of fencing to alleviate some of those issues.
I like the hedgerows.
All right, if there's no more questions on that, moving on. The next section of this, out of that same ask, it's 1 million total. It's broken up into 3 different projects, about 300,000 built in, and we've shaved off that a little bit. That'll cover some of our percentages. We're not going to build till next year more than likely, so we've also built in some of that cost that may rise between now and then. We've got fencing and all kinds of other things we've got to put in on this. For years now, we've talked about how do we get a West Terre Haute loop. Duke Energy tells me they're very confident we're going to get a grant to be able to cross 40 by Sugar Creek Scrap and run down the old rail bed to Old Paris. They'll pay for that portion. That's where this picks up, and we'd cantilever off Old Paris, running it to the ball field. Connecting that ball field with the Wabashiki Trail is an artery there that you don't have safe passage. So I believe one of the West Terre Haute board members is here as well in support of this. It's going to be awesome to connect from not only our downtown to Wabashiki, but then eventually being able to do that, share the road to St. Mary's and some of these other trails that you have a map of right now. And this is going to be a really nice looking trail. 8-foot wide concrete fencing to hook up to the existing concrete at the ball field. So then I'd lean on Larry and some West Terre Haute folks at that point to rehab some sidewalks to get our loop complete officially. But that's going to be a really awesome trail system there that connects a lot of people. Any questions about that? I've got a picture here of what where we're running down there on Old Paris. Got anything to add to that?
So how far in Old Paris? I'm trying to visualize. where.
It's about 0.22 miles
Okay.
from where the railroad tracks come out on Old Paris down to the concrete on the ball field.
Okay. Does anyone on the council have any questions, or, Adam comes prepared?
No, not directly.
What's the time frame on that, Larry? Or you guys, either one of you, both of you?
Sure, I mean, assuming funding approval and everything else, we could develop, work with a contractor to get this done. There's not much design that really goes into it. There's some drainage things we need to take care of. We can identify those in the field. We can start working on it as early as this fall, depending on
Wow.
funding approval or not. But like Adam said, most likely the majority of it will probably take place next spring. We do a lot of the clearing this fall and winter, and maybe some of the prep work for some of those things.
That's awesome.
And you got plenty of time in your schedule, I know that, you're just sitting around a lot.
Absolutely, I can pencil it in, yes.
I think that is awesome. Adam, that's extraordinarily good on your part to
We've
think of the
developed
folks
a-
over there, that, to add to that Wabashiki, which is just spectacular.
Yeah, and we've developed a great partnership with the County Highway Department. They've done some clearing, like on this Raleigh Spur, we come in, do some spraying and some clearing. Between our resources, we're able to get it all picked up.
We've been hearing a rumor that they're putting a statue of you up at Third and National in West T.
You hear that,
Could
Larry?
be true.
All right, so moving on, that's a good segue into the last portion. The pedestrian walkway obviously is well used. Talked about for years now is the conceptual design of an overlook at Dewey Point. You'll see on your last 2 pages here, Duke Energy vacated the concrete towers that were there for the electric lines, took those down with the vision of making this an overlook one of these days. Hopefully that day has come to really catapult off of that pedestrian walkway. And we've now got trails to the river. We've not got trails to the wetland around West Terre Haute. This is kind of that jewel on top of that trail system that's going to draw those people in. If you're at the convention center, this is like a 2-minute bike ride, down to Dewey Point. This is coming in at somewhere around $175,000. We've got donations to pay for the engineering on this, so this is just the build cost. But we've got the design and everything already taken care of through donations. So everybody likes to come take pictures of eagles and all kinds of stuff in the wetlands, but this is really going to catapult that project as well. This was conceptualized, well, really years ago, but 2016, Seifert Williams did that plan for us, identifying that location.
Are there any questions from the council? I really appreciate, just from a standpoint, I could say this for next week, but just to kind of say, this is such a collaborative effort. When you talk about all the parties and groups involved, funding, it's exciting. This is what I like to see on ARPA, so I appreciate the work and kind of leading everyone together. It's neat. So, no more questions? You might be off the hook.
All right, I'm always around.
Look at Larry pulling away.
Run now.
He's ditching you.
Thank
Adam.
you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. All right. Next up is, I'm sure, Mr. Klinkenbeard, who's going to be introducing
Good evening
some of
once
our
again.
ARPA people.
Mark, thanks for having me again. I would like to introduce Ryan Keller with Thrive West Central. We've been working with Ryan over the last few months, putting together a plan to help spur much-needed housing development in our community. Ryan has tweaked the plan several times for us, and the result is a plan that will incentivize home builders and developers while also laying a foundation for long-term housing development. The commissioners are excited to support this plan and look forward to rolling it out. Ryan?
Speaking of team effort, there you go.
There's not going to be a quiz on this after you do this, is there?
I'm Brian Keller. I'm the Executive Director of Thrive West Central, and I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to come to present tonight. I'd like to say thank you to Commissioner Klinkenbeard for the introduction, my Director of Business Development, John Ford, and Mrs. Julie Hart, one of our planners here tonight. I'm here today to request $5 million in Vigo County ARPA funding to continue the great work that we are doing with long-term housing development and market empowerment. How do we change the slide here? Oh, there we go. There we go. So, an effective housing development is a strategic endeavor. It's a process. It's where it's more than a study. It's more than just funding one infrastructure project or a couple infrastructure projects. It's really a strategic process that we take all the information that we have in the past, what we have in the present, and we really start to look at the future. We look at market potential, and what that does is that looks at who wants to live here, how much they can afford, do they want to rent or buy. And so a housing strategy is all about understanding the market, how it is today, and looking at the folks who have not lived here in the past, but who are maybe looking for housing, and the last time they looked, they didn't find anything that suited them. A really good example in real time is some of the recent successes that we've had with large companies coming in, and their executives and senior leaders have wanted to live here, and they haven't always been able to find the housing that has suited them. And so now some of them are living outside of Vigo County, and we just can't let that keep happening. What we're going to be doing is we're using the home optimization market and empowerment method, or the HOME method. So the first stage of that is the housing optimization, and that's something that we've already began here at Thrive. We started that at last year when we got an AREDI grant for $1.8 million to really start doing the Homes for the Future project. And that housing optimization is where we start to understand what the market potential is for the city of Terre Haute and for Vigo County and all of West Central Indiana. And it really starts to dig into who wants to live here, given they had the right housing choices, the right target markets, the right rent, the right everything. If they wanted to live here, what do we need to be building, and how should we be pricing that? The second part of that is the market empowerment of the HOME method. And that's where we really dig into the targeted housing developments, and where we really start to put the work into workforce housing. And that's something that we all desperately need here. So unfortunately, the market conditions in Vigo County, and really all throughout West Central Indiana, and a lot of really all throughout Indiana, has not yielded this event or this kind of method to happen organically on its own. So that's where the HOME process comes in, and it starts to help kind of shore up those factors with the private sector to get this kind of going as a catalyst to an engine for success. So when we start to do this, we're going to fire up the private sector market by creating an ecosystem that works symbiotically together. And this will help solve the funding gaps on projects that normally limit development, where developers just say, hey, I'd love to go build this, but I just can't make it work financially. It creates and deploys buyer support programs, buyer education, and buyer pipelines. It provides builders, lenders, and investors the data and the information that they need to be confident in the projects that they're doing in our county. It creates long-term community development opportunities that focus on a population that already lives here and a population who would move here provided that they have the housing options that they're searching for. So as we kind of dive into this a little bit deeper, we're already using the HOME method here at Thrive, and it's generating a lot of success, which I'll get into in the next couple of slides. So the big question you probably have is, if you're going to use this ARPA money, how is it going to be used? And this next slide really shows that. So we're going to invest 96.4% right into builder developments and implementation. So that's going to go right into projects that are going to create more housing units. We have just a little bit of that. 3.6 is going to help us launch some of those support mechanisms, such as training, such as the launch of Club 720, which is a virtual platform that is the foundation of long-term housing and development strategies. And that works with local lenders, realtors, and home buyers. And it starts to create down payment assistance programs to first and second-time home buyers, all the way up to 4%. Which is huge. And often what we see in a lot of individuals, the things that limit them from purchasing a house is being able to have that first initial down payment. So that's just one piece of that puzzle. In addition, we'll be looking at site selection and pre-development, and so we'll be able to overcome some of those barriers that developers just say, hey, we'd love to be able to work on this site, but it's just not ready and it's going to cost too much to get it ready. So we can help get it ready. And then the bulk of it is really going to go right into different kind of programs that are going to help get houses built and housing units built right away. So you can see this is a multi-stage process. And each of these stages really have a lot of detail and a lot of depth within them. But given this kind of format, I won't dive into that rabbit hole too much. But the first is going to be building leadership capacity, and it's going to start with an 11-person steering committee. Within your packet on the right side, there's a document, and I think it's on page 4. It lists what that 11-person steering committee is made up of and how it's composed of. But really, you on the council, as well as the commissioners and members within the city of Terre Haute, all get to pick members to serve on that committee to help steer us in the right direction based on what all the data says to get this housing engine going. Next, we launch Club 720, and we start that strategic development with all the private sector folks. Then we start to identify different sites for pre-development. We'll look at what sites are already ready to go and are just an easy yes, and then we'll look at the more difficult sites and how we fit them into the timeline. Next, we work on a comprehensive communication strategy, and then we start to really dive in March of next year, right into implementation and development. So that means projects, when they're shovel ready and the ground thaws, they're ready to start building. And then 6, we'll focus through this whole process over the next 2 years with a sophisticated impact measurement report that we'll provide biannually for all stakeholders to see just how much success we're having in the market. Oops. There we go. Oops. We're going to go back one. So just to demonstrate to you how this is already working and how much success we've been having here at Thrive, as I mentioned before, we were granted $1.8 million in READY funds to do a housing project called Homes for the Future. And that's where we really started working on that home optimization in the first part of this equation. And you can see in that timeline how we've steadily marched forward over the last 9 or 10 months here. And we've already been super successful with this, where we have been able to award 7 projects were submitted, 5 were awarded, and we were able to leverage $25.7 million in private sector development, and $22 million almost was right here in Vigo County, and that yielded 130 new housing units developed that we didn't have coming before. So through that process, we are able to be successful, and I know with this help, we'll be able to continue to empower the market and build a long-term system for housing growth here in Vigo County that will last for decades to come. Thank you. What questions do you have?
Thank you, Ryan. Does the council have any questions, or possibly next week after you process some of this? But it is a lot of information.
I wanted to come prepared.
Yeah, sitting on the board, I can say Ryan is very thorough with what he does.
Really, out of Montgomery County, Maryland, they have affordable housing innovation.
Oh, so sorry.
In Montgomery County, Maryland, they have an affordable housing innovation. And one of the things they have is a law that requires developers to set aside about 15% of the units in a new projects for households making less than 2/3 of the area's median income. Is that anything that we would consider in our county?
That's a good point. based on what you know, Ryan, with the funding, because I know there's like ties and things, is that something that the committee, or is that something that would be decided differently? And does it fit? I mean, is that something you'd have to run by if we could do something like
Or
that?
does it already have parameters on it? So much low income, so much senior, et cetera?
I think I'd want to look into their program in Maryland just to see what the details are and learn more about it before I answered. If you look in your packets, and then you also look on, if you go to Housing Hub right there, that web address, you can find our resource library, and that has our market potential analysis, and it goes all the way down to 30% of area median income. And it does talk in there what rents need to be and what housing costs need to be to fit that exact population that you're referring to. So we've done the research already to cover the whole spectrum, and that would just be something that I think I need to learn more about to see how they've set up programs like that.
Madam President,
Yes.
one question. The 21.88 million that's awarded to Vigo County, is that still standing to be awarded to private sector entities here?
So we've already released the press release and announced the awards. The builders have all verbally accepted of that award, and now we're in the contracting period. So here within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have contracting completed, and then they will be off to the races. So then they can begin building as soon as the contracts are signed. And they do have a time limit on that, just like all ready funds. And we've set that timer to be done by September 30th of 2025. All units need to be completed.
And this will have a timer too.
Absolutely, because
Probably even more
all of our ARPA funding has a time limit on it. So we'll be very diligent on minding that time.
Anyone else from the council? I think, to explain to the public too, many of us have been following stuff from, I think, was it in July? You had the initial meeting and just kind of getting information. And we'll process this packet. We might have some questions
Absolutely.
for you for next week. I do appreciate kind of a clear makeup. One of the things I think the council will have to look towards is if we will do a combined committee with the city. And it looks like you've kind of spread that out with a variety, not necessarily with names, but and I think that's a process that many of us would be interested in as far as who would get to appoint and how. I think that if we do something like that, that's going to be the big part of it. But it includes people from real estate, schools, EDC, economic development, bankers, community members, business community. So I think you've done a good job trying to reach all different people that would
Thank
be
you very
impacted.
much.
Anyone else? Well, that was easy for tonight.
Okay, thank you so very much. I really appreciate it.
And I think we can all send questions to Ryan if we have any beforehand, so he has information.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. Moving along. The next presentation is for ARPA Grant Fund Rose Holman Rose Ventures Relocation, which is additional appropriation 2023-58. And it looks like we have someone here to present on that.
Look forward.
Yay, there's the rose colors.
So, good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present tonight. My name is Brian Doherty. I'm the Senior Director for Rose Home Adventures. Since I'm kind of a new entity around here, just a little bit about me. Terre Haute native, grew up here. Like too many people, got out of college in the early 90s, moved away for work opportunities. But then, fortunately for me, I came back in early 2000 to be one of the team that stood up Rose Home Adventures, and unexpectedly, I've been here for 23 years working with the program. So I will cut to the chase. Rose Holman is looking for $500,000 to assist with an exciting new innovation park that we're trying to create. This is a multi-phased and multifaceted project. The beginning piece of it involves relocating and expanding the current Rose Home Adventures program. So I'm going to talk very briefly about that so you have a baseline understanding of what that is. And then I'll get into the innovation growth. So Rose Home Adventures exists to create professional practice experience for students. And the way we choose to do that is by engaging outside companies to do some sort of real technical work. Every one of these projects is managed by a full-time professional staff member, and each contract we sign creates a finite number of job opportunities that we can then reach out and hire students to either be part-time or full-time interns working with our program. So in a given year, with our staffing level, we can work with 20, 25 clients at any given time. That allows us to hire 30 to 50 student interns to come work with us at any given time. And then typically we'll target, well, no typically, we do target greater than 115 different individuals to get internship experiences with us. And then that's usually spread over 35 to 45 different clients a year. Just to kind of give you an idea of the last fiscal year, and this is a sort of impact that we have on the companies around us, because remember, this is all done for entities external to Rose Holman. Last year, we worked with 34 clients, which is a little lower than usual, but we worked on 51 projects for those clients, so again, it depends on the project mix. Developed or put in just a little less than 37,000 hours of engineering work, and for that, we only charged our clients $1.4 million. We don't compete on cost. We don't want to be seen as the low-cost provider. However, it's really nice for our clients that we are pretty inexpensive, so that's a pretty good bargain for them. We helped our clients find over $250,000 worth of non-dilutive funding. This primarily comes in the form of various grants. There's a number of grant organizations and programs that have come to recognize what Rose Home Adventures does. So we have become kind of a fast track for people to get that grant funding. They understand, okay, if you're working with ventures, that's a great opportunity, and they're a little quicker to come up with grant funds. Last year, we introduced 118 new individuals to doing engineering work in the innovation space, and the innovation space is very hard. These are the hardest of the hard projects out there, and we're just pumping out the bright young minds that know how to do that. We paid those interns $500,000 in wages. This is primarily discretionary funding for them, so most of that gets spent here. Sometimes we refer to it as the pizza and beer money. And that work also resulted in 6 patent applications and 5 product launches for our clients. So that's what we do today. It's time to invest in growth. Ventures is as good as what we do today, and as much as we've learned on how to be valuable to our clients, we provide services to a fairly narrow niche in the business world. And as a result, we provide value to a fairly narrow niche of the student population that's out there. So by investing in some new resources and investing in some new skills, we can broaden that up to where we provide more value to more of our business partners, and it's providing value to the business partners that in turn creates the educational opportunity I'm looking for. However, we don't particularly want to invest in the location we're at. Currently, Ventures is about a mile south of I-70 on State Road 46 in what used to be called Ayla Park. 23 years ago, when we started this program, that was about a 5.5-mile drive from campus and had 3 stoplights. Today, it's a 6.5-mile drive and has 8 stoplights. And as that corridor develops, that commute is going to just become more and more challenging. Couple with that some changes that have happened through the course schedule throughout the day, and it's actually made it quite a bit more difficult for our interns to come down and work with us during the day. Coincidentally, Rose Holman purchased the old Holman farm a few years ago. Everybody's probably aware of that. So we've got a tremendous opportunity just across US 40 from the main campus to develop this kind of environment. In fact, the southern third there that runs along the State Road 42 corridor is really ideal for this kind of development. These renderings are a couple of possible concepts. The only thing I can guarantee you is the building won't look exactly like either of those. But the idea is we're going to plant Rose Home Adventures here on the corner initially and expand that into some other opportunities that as a whole encompass innovation growth. So what is innovation growth going to be? It's a hub for all of our entrepreneurial and innovative activities that are going one of the 4 core tenets in Rose-Hulman's Tier 2 strategic plan for the next decade is to foster a mindset of entrepreneurship and innovation, not only within Rose-Hulman, but within the region. And one thing to keep in mind about Rose-Hulman is what makes Rose-Hulman special from an educational institute is our faculty are in the classroom teaching. That means they're not in the lab doing research. That means, unlike some of the other institutions around the state, Purdue, IU, Notre Dame, we're not generating new technologies. So if we want to be part of innovation, we want to be part of entrepreneurism, we have to look externally for that. We have to get those opportunities by helping people in the community. So we're looking to anchor that, to find a place for that to be called home. Rose-Hulman Ventures is going to be the anchor for this. We've been running that program for 23 years. We've learned a lot about how to do what we do, and we can leverage that to create new business units, and that's the new part of this. We think we can set up business units that are very similar to ventures in model, but very different in focus. So some examples of that might be a biochemistry test lab. We see need for that here in the community. I know I know several community businesses spent several $1 million sending their COVID test to some other slightly well-known engineering institution 2 hours up the river. Well, why didn't we do that here? Well, we didn't do that here because we didn't have a lab. Now, I hope we never have to do that again, but it highlights that there's an opportunity there to drive value. We also see need for materials testing, things like that. So these could be ISO-compliant laboratories that can provide services for industry and at the same time create very real experience for our students. We see a need for an ISO-compliant production facility, a pilot production facility, manufacturing. Everybody's talking about the need to develop manufacturing skill sets. Well, we also need to develop the technicians and the engineers and the people who are going to be running those manufacturing facilities, right? So there's an opportunity to do that with not only Rose-Hulman students, but other students in the other colleges that will be going into the kind of jobs that not only do the manufacturing, but run the facilities. Innovation Grove will also be the home for the Sawmill Society and the Sawmill Angels. So the Sawmill Society is an entrepreneurial society made up of friends of Rose-Hulman who have made a pledge to help either people within Rose-Hulman or groups that are already affiliated with Rose-Hulman develop their entrepreneurial business ideas. And then the Sawmill Angels is a subset of that group who's put together an angel fund, and they're looking to do early seed funding and angel funding for these startup companies. And being a client of Rose-Hulman Ventures actually enables you to be considered for Sawmill Society support. So, probably most exciting to the community is we don't want this to be all Rose-Hulman owned stuff. We don't have the capacity or the bandwidth for that. We want to create opportunities for corporate partners to come and land their people, their skunkworks development, their product development, what have you, on our site, working with us, utilizing Rose-Hulman facilities, but thereby creating the educational opportunities that we're looking for. So we think there's room for 4, 5, 6, maybe more corporate partners to land and build their structures there, and that's what you see. You know, the corner is going to be the new Innovation Grove Rose-Hulman Ventures building, but we see that expanding. There's a couple of opportunities that have come up. One is actually very mature, and I can't talk about either of them in public, but one in particular is going to have enough economic impact to totally eclipse anything that Rose-Hulman Ventures can do in this facility. So we're already seeing traction on attracting these kind of businesses to the location. And then finally, and just as Ryan was talking about, you know, Rose-Hulman feels the need for housing for our first-year employees. It's hard to get people to come here because they have a hard time finding a place to live. And if we bring corporate partner clients in here and they land people, maybe they land people temporarily for 18 or 24 months, they're going to need housing as well. And there's plenty of room. So we see as a long-term thing that there's potential for people to develop mixed-use housing on this site as well. And then that's, of course, going to create the need for the comfort and entertainment and eating spaces and things like that. So what you're looking at on the screen there, the aerial view is the current campus and the new farm property. You see 46 and 42 there intersecting in the lower left corner. And you'll see that little bootleg of tree line with the little fish hook at the top. That bootleg with fishhook is exactly what you see in the rendering there in the top. So that's where we would plant the initial development, and then it would probably sprawl along the 42 corridor there. So that's what we're looking to build. What's in it for you all? Obviously, there's going to be increased entrepreneurism in the region, and there's increased opportunities for entrepreneurs to do stuff. There's a lot of people who have great ideas, but they don't have the technical power to pull it off. And we want to work with those people. That's where we get the educational benefits that we're looking for. There's going to be increased support for local companies. The 34 companies we worked with last year, 8 of them were local. So there's a fairly significant amount of our book of business that comes from helping local companies out. There's going to be an increase in full and part-time employment at Rose-Hulman. The feasibility study that RJL and Thrive helped us put together for an EDA grant shows that in a 10-year period, we'll create upwards of 20 full-time positions and upwards of 500 part-time positions from Rose-Hulman alone. And then, of course, there's the job growth that comes from corporate partners coming in and landing there as well. And then finally, the potential for additional housing, which is certainly a need for the community. Lastly, we've got a budget. This is how we're funding this so far. About $6 million of Rose-Hulman assets have been brought to bear on this. We are comfortable that we've got another $4 million we can raise philanthropically. We've got $1.5 million allocated to us from the First Ready grant. The last two in green there aren't known entities yet. We're well into the process of requesting $2 million from the EDA. We won't know about that for a little while yet, but the feedback from the EDA has been quite positive and quite supportive. And then, of course, I'm here looking for $500,000 tonight. So with that, is there any questions?
What took you so long to get here? This is fantastic. It's wonderful and best news I've heard.
Well, thank you. It's a very exciting opportunity, and as we've been talking about this, we've been saying, yeah, it's time to grow. And in the back of my mind, I'm going, yeah, we're actually probably about 10 years overdue. So if nothing else, we're moving slow and moving well.
We want one little building where you train your graduates to stay here in our community.
We want that too.
Okay. Any other questions from the council? So the housing, just a quick question, the housing, that will be for Rose, either Rose people or people that are helping in kind of a temporary, I understand where you're going with it.
Yeah, I don't know that it's that seclusive. And my boss should be the one saying that. I report to the president, and these are not decisions that would be in my pay grade. But Rose-Hulman's not in the business of doing housing development, right? We would look for somebody else to develop that, and I think that would be developed in conjunction with what Thrive's talking about doing. You've got to be smart about how you figure out what you're going to build, right? People can't afford to build on spec anymore. It's too expensive to do that. So you have to build proactively, because the houses have to be here when people need them, but you have to do that wisely. And I don't think it makes sense for that to be a Rose-Hulman entity.
Right.
I think that's...
Well, and I see that, my son does graduate work at IU, and IU owns, it's scattered throughout town. I like the idea that it's closer to the campus for them, but there's IU housing for graduate students, for researchers, new faculty that just might get pulled in at the last minute, so.
And to be completely transparent, it's a need we've identified as, boy, it would be so much easier for us to recruit if we had at least a temporary solution for first-year housing for new faculty, new staff when they came in. And we recognize that, wow, if we have corporate people landing Skunk Works developers here, even if they may only be here for 18 months, they need a place to go. And that started to congeal, and well, the entire region needs housing, and there's plenty of space. So it seems that there's an opportunity there for some sort of mixed-use housing that would work well for the whole community, but it's undefined at this point.
Okay. And do we know yet what will happen to the old area? I know it's far away from campus.
Yeah, we anticipate selling that property as part of the funding for this.
Okay, all right. Well, and I'm sure We might have more questions for next week. Any other questions, thoughts? All right.
If any of the council wants to come see Ventures in Operation, just give me a call.
How long ago did that start? I believe
It's almost, it'd be 23.
I was gonna say, I remember
It
when.
was 24 years ago this month that the original Lilly grant was announced, and then we opened the doors in 1st of January in 2000. So it was 24 years ago this month, I mean.
Okay, all right.
So 23, 24 years.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Well, I think we are now up to our salary information, so we will talk about salary ordinance 2023-59A, which is adjustment rates to be provided. And then, can I go ahead and lump these two together, Michael? Or do you want me to say, okay. And then we will also address the amended 2023 salary ordinance. Just to stress these are kind of continued works in progress, and a lot of it's going to be, some feedback will be needed as we go into the next meeting. Yeah, if anyone needs to leave for this part, please feel free. If you've been here for the ARPA presentations or anything like that, I think a lot of you have been staying for this, and I appreciate that. I think we can, yeah. Okay, well, we will go, so am I going through each of them, or? That's just your total. Okay. Okay, and so Cheryl has, and a lot of people, including HR and things, have been working hard to kind of deal with some of the adjustments. As we talked about, Baker Tilly has done some of the legwork, but it's a working document in particular. And so I think we will address, and this is the part where I'm not so great with leading the meetings, the E911 adjust rate, pay rates to be provided. So is that, what page is that? Page 61? And we have,
I emailed that spreadsheet to you. I tried to print that off for you if you want to try to read it, where it was compared on the columns for you. I'm not sure you guys are going to be able to read that all the way across. If Joey wants to hook me up, maybe I can show him this page, but that's.
and,
Do you remember what I emailed everybody
Yep.
to show that comparison? You're not going to be able to read that.
yeah, so all of us have a document,
The red column was what they requested.
was what was requested, and we'll let Vicki kind of address what was going on with this request and how we can look at it. So we've got a letter from the Vigo County 911 director. So Vicki, if you just want to sum it up really. Okay.
Good evening.
Hi.
Vicki Oster, Vigo County 911. Sarah Holbert, my Assistant Director of 911. So today we have come here because we feel that our people were underrated on the Baker Tilly study. We have always been in conjunction pretty much with the jail and juvenile probation or center correctional officers. And this year with this study, we are one grade below them. So I have felt that we were underrated, except for the supervisors who Baker Tilly decided were underrated on their own and moved them up. So I'm asking for every position to be raised up one level and to go to the midpoint of that level, retroactive to the first of the year. I believe that I talked to Cheryl, and she has sent along a paper with you with the numbers on that. And one of the reasons why we're doing that is we have had such a hard time getting people to apply for jobs. 911 is very critical to this county, to all public safety officers, fire, EMS, and citizens. And those calls come in to us first. This year, we have hired 17 people, and 14 of them have resigned. It's like an 83% rate. For different reasons. Some were they couldn't do the job. Some were they left for higher paying jobs, and some just didn't show up at all. So out of those people that we have, 6 seasoned dispatchers have left for higher paying jobs. And I have one that's getting ready, already turned in a resignation, and one that's getting ready to. I'm now down to 17 dispatchers that are trained, soon to be 15. And with these 2 people leaving, and we can't continue to lose people. I have my people that have stayed here, that have been dedicated to this county, that has served this county, and we're getting to a critical point. Sarah's working shifts to help cover because we don't have enough staffing to do it. I don't know that a pay increase would attract more people, but we have to be able to attract people that want to do this as a career, not just, come in and stay for a while and go. My people are stressed. Excuse me. My people are overworked. They feel they're underpaid. And the spreadsheet that I gave you from the Indiana counties is who chose to participate in that. You can see I kind of went down by people that were the same size as us. Some pay a little more, some pay a little less. And in the packet I sent over for Cheryl was an article that was put out by IAED, and it's called America's 911 Workforce in Crisis. On page 5 of that, there down at the bottom, there is a listing of why this is happening all over the country. Number 1 was for better hours or scheduling what they worked, 46.4%. Number 2 was for a better opportunity, 43.9%. Number 3 was pay, 32.8%. Number 4 was stress at 30.4%. And number 5 was family changes at 26.2%. Along with hiring these people, we can't just hire a person in and bring them in and sit down and have them function as a dispatcher. Our protocol for training is for 6 months, which could take more time than that. And I'm having a hard time to get people to stay through the complete 6 months of training. They're just like, it's too much. And so they won't be comfortable and start working on their own and feeling comfortable in that position for a full year or more after we get them in there. So I need to get people in. Right now I have 3 new people. They're brand new. The one that I had before has turned in her resignation. So she's gone. And I know that everyone knows that we were, the governor signed us in as first responders in March of 2020 on House Bill 1198, and it was signed into Public Law 113 on March 30th, 2021. This is not something that we're requesting for accreditation or acknowledgement. We're just requesting the pay that commiserates with being a first responder, because without us, no one would be sent out anywhere.
Okay,
Any
so-
questions?
Has anyone had a chance? So to clarify, you're asking for, just to do a summary here,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where we had looked at it and needed to process things a little bit more.
Right?
But you're requesting a grade increase,
Yes, one level,
so that
except for the supervisors.
and supervisors were okay.
Supervisors were deemed below average by Baker Tilly, and they were given a substantial raise.
So the grade level is kind of associated with the raise part of it too, from what I,
Mhm.
okay.
And to clarify, Vicki, for those who are part of the subcommittee, though, and I believe it's in your packet, she currently has 3 supervisor positions?
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes.
And she wants to go to 6 because she kind of has a stipend that we use when she's had assistant supervisors. And she wants to do away with that, the assistants. So looking at you, making sure we're all on the same page, and go to 6 supervisors. And that's been accounted for, all of her requests. I know it was too hard, that's why I emailed the spreadsheet to you. Because like Marie and I wanted to see the difference. So in the red column is the change, and the black is what came from Baker Tilly, and the red is her request. And then, of course, the salary that would go with that grade is in the red column if you go all the way across.
So X on that, go back,
I'm sorry.
that's okay. The X column that we just saw, that's their current, correct?
This
Column
one here,
X. No, column X. That's minimum.
that's minimum. Their
Okay.
current is over here.
Okay.
Yeah, and my salaries aren't
Here's
paid
current.
out of the general fund. My money comes from the lit and from 911, state 911 funds. So this would not cost the county anything because our money comes from those 2 funds only.
So that's your current salary. This is what came from Baker Tilly. This was the grade, since we got away from the other types, that Baker Tilly gave to it. This is her requested grade. This was the minimum that came from Baker Tilly. This is the 25th percentile that would have came with the grade in the black. And the red would be the 25th percentile to the requested grade. Same way with the midpoint as it goes all the way across. And then as you see, I also did the change in the increase all the way across for your midpoint and your 25th percentile.
With the pay grade the way it is, I have people that were grandfathered in before we went through the last pay study. And we had several people that made more money than what they said. So they did not get a raise. They got a cost of living stipend for a year, and instead of a raise like everyone else did. And they're still, if we went with the current rate of what they are now, I still have people that would be over and would not get a raise.
On that totals page that I gave you, that was at the front of your sheet that was sent, on the back, you'll see lit PSAP dispatch. Out to the side, that does give you 25% with her requested adjustment. So that's the 25th percentile with her adjustment, her requested adjustment. That's the cost.
So the 150,000 is for the full year, at 25%, is that right? Do we have a total for the midpoint?
I do, it's like 200 and some thousand. I've got this other sheet, I took my totals off of this one because of everything.
I also
Pull up the
wanted
other
to say that this year, we have never been at full staff for 25 people. So I still have several salaries that's not being paid out because I can't get to full staff to pay them out.
That's just for salaries right there, Aaron. And then I just need to add FICA and perf into that. You see the bottom of the screen?
Oh, right there.
That's salaries
That's midpoint, for salary only, and then I need to add in FICA and perf.
So is what we have on this, on the back of this page, 150, is that FICA and perf included?
That's FICA and perf,
Okay,
yeah, I
so
did
that's
it all
all
the
in.
way across.
Thank you.
So
I
that's
was,
with
I
that.
was told to do everything on 25th percentile.
Okay, thank you.
That's why your sheet looks like that.
What can we assume, general rule of thumb for FICA and perf, roughly, percentage?
What I do with my phone, and I can tell you real quick.
Yeah. Vicki, in looking at things, I know you've talked a little bit about shifts, and that was one of the things that was brought up on why people leave the profession.
Right.
With changes in supervision, is there anything that would help that? Like, what are your shifts right now? And
I have a
Is it
day
4 on,
shift,
4 on?
which is 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., a mid shift from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., and an overnight shift from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I can't move people around to like overcome these certain areas because I don't have enough trained people to move them right now.
and is it how many days on, how many days off?
4 days on, 2 days off. And I did a quick study in 2022. We had an average, including text calls, all calls, 911, admin, everything, all calls, including text to 911, text from 911. It was 183,279 calls only. For this year, I estimated, I went to June and I doubled that amount to do an estimate of what we're looking at. So far, we've had 3846 text to and text from 911, and it would be around 192,800. Most of the time, if you break that down weekly, it's 3773 calls a week. It's 539 calls a day. And with three people working for 3-hour shifts in a 24-hour period, that's over 60 calls for one person to be answering in a shift with no lunch breaks and nothing else.
About 287,000 total. And that would just be, of course, that's straight across the board, no overtime or anything. But
Any questions? Are we still processing? Go ahead, Mr. Loudon.
I apologize if you already covered this, Vicki, but how long does it usually take to get a new dispatcher fully trained?
Our training protocol now is for 6 months to go through fires, county police, city police, and the fires now are basically combined into one. And so they have to learn city fire and county fire at the same time. If they don't catch on immediately, we give them a week remedial training. So it could take minimum, we have a 6 months. It could take longer than that if they need remedial training. But they will be put out on their own and they'll get through all their certifications, but they will still have questions. They won't be truly comfortable for a year or more.
So how many How many dispatchers are on a shift right now?
Most of the time I have 3 because people are taking time off. They're, and I have just talked to a person that used to work for us in dispatch. She's now with another county. She's moved back here. She doesn't want to give up her job in the other county because they pay quite a bit more than what we do. So she'll drive to the other county, but she's been willing to come in and help us out.
I will say, from my experience, I've never worked in dispatch, and quite frankly, I would never want to because I've seen what they go through and how difficult that is over the years. And I think, from my perspective, this is a similar challenge to what we faced with the jail officers and their pay in recent years. I worked at the jail many years ago, and from what I recall back then, dispatchers were paid equivalent to what a jail officer was paid. So it was the same salary structure as what a jail officer received. And it appears, from what I'm looking at, the 50%, that's pretty close to what the jail officer is at. Is that fair to say?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This, is it not?
It might be more than what the jail officers are making now.
2080?
80 for correctional officers.
Okay. You're currently at
They're
2020?
They're currently at
2020.
1966 for the
66,
majority.
Okay.
For just a dispatcher.
The others are supervisors.
Yeah, the other ones are supervisors
Okay, so
or
then
have been here.
Sure.
all the way to the I think, just kind of trying to keep, with the meeting, I think that we need the people who are here and not here to kind of look at it more closely. And if they have, because I have a feeling, both, Councilman Thompson and Councilman Thacker will have some questions too. So we obviously don't vote on it tonight anyways, so. We got good information. Do you have another question here?
Yeah, I do. I guess is there an advertised appropriation for this? Is there an advertised amount that was?
We have not advertised any of those yet until you made all your decisions, and so we'll clean it up
Okay.
for what's needed for the rest of the year on whatever you
Gotcha.
decide to do.
Okay. So
And that's for all of them, Aaron. That's kind of what we're doing.
Okay, let me, let's clarify this too. For your request for raising your assistant supervisors up to supervisor, that's, you can cover all your shifts with the supervisor.
Yes.
That's why they need those to raise.
They're
up to
doing the
supervisor.
same job basically, but
They're not getting the pay.
for less money.
Yeah, so that's why that request is in there, so they can cover every shift with the supervisor. Because sometimes Sarah has to, dispatch and it's just short.
Yeah.
Period.
Are supervisors dispatching as well?
Yes, everybody that I have, because I'm so short, does a job. Everything extra, the IDACs, the training, the supervisor, the assistant supervisor, is just what they do extra while they're doing that. And you also need to understand that this is not just for 911 calls. We have radio traffic that we do, multiple channels, Yeah, well,
So
they already
that's just a
included.
clarification, so everybody's aware of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Vic. A lot to process.
Is that good?
Yep,
We good?
thank you, thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you. And if we have any more questions, we'll reach out.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you,
Thank you.
ladies.
I'm assuming you're wanting to go through each one that was discussed at the subcommittee. Is that what you're wanting to do, the changes or recommendations individually? Is that the,
I don't know what Todd
What's-
wanted
what-
me to do.
You got any best recommendations?
well, I mean,
on
I can,
that?
I can point them all out, and then I'll tell you what, then, and explain some of them.
That's what I
And then
think
how
is the
about, if you have
cleanest
questions,
way.
and you can ask the department.
Thank
heads.
you.
I think that's
Okay.
the way.
How about?
So, to kind of just go with where Cheryl Loudermilk is addressing, there were, it was a subcommittee to address any of the issues, because there were some things that we caught as we were looking to it, county, positions and payroll, it's a tough position if you don't know, like, how things have been and where there might have been mistakes. And so several of us, met and tried to work out some of the kinks, so that's where, is she leaving me? You're not leaving me, are you?
No, I'm giving you.
Okay. So we had to address a few of the situations, and I think we're aware we addressed
Able to read that.
some of them in council, but then others were through the subcommittee. And some of them were just
And-
a matter of, like I said, dotting an I.
And I believe that President Thacker wanted it brought to the attention of all council members to make sure that they were aware of any changes that will be recommended by the committee to the council. That's any change from what came back from Baker Tilly. And I believe that Karen had sent you the minutes from the subcommittee,
She did.
so we'll just kind of go in that order since dispatches already went in theirs. The commissioners had their commissioner administrator. And, I mean, if they're here and they want to speak, what it was is, it had always been based on the same as the council administrator. And when that position came back, originally from Baker Tilly, there was a step difference in that. So it was changed by a recommendation of the committee from a 10 to 11.
Okay. Reasonable to me.
That's, and I did highlight those changes in red. I didn't do a separate column, but the grade change is in red under that department. Is Bruce here? Does Bruce want to speak, or you want me to speak, Bruce? Is he here? Huh?
I'd say you can speak.
You want me to go ahead?
I'd say,
Okay.
as far, for the procedural, if
And so,
Cheryl speaks. and
the
then-
surveyor was here to speak for his chief deputy and, also the chief deputy recorder. When those came back, they were listed lower than the other chief deputies. They had always been treated the same, so those grades were adjusted to the same as the other chief deputies.
Okay.
And of course, you're making me now speak about our department. And I don't know where you want me to start. Maybe I could start with staff accountant and financials grant administrator. When those came back, they were at a 9, and for some reason, we're not sure why those weren't compared to at least the treasurer finance deputy as a 10, as those responsibilities totally resemble one another. They take, treasurer takes care of the cash book. On our side, we take care of the funds ledger, the grants, the financials, and as we all know, our grants have went skyrocketed from about 50 to 60 to sometimes 70 grant with those, and that position does help other departments with their grants and in reporting. Both of these positions help with our audits anymore and our gap audits, along with the actual annual financial report that we do with State Board of Accounts.
And let me just say also, Cheryl, I checked with the state, and they recommended we hire a person to do the grants. I don't know why you guys didn't go with that really good recommendation, but anyway, that was what that was about.
Well, maybe I should have started with, when I started in the auditor's office many moons ago,
And they pulled the covered wagons up
and Jimmy
here.
will, can attest to this. We actually had, quite a few more people, but we actually had an assistant chief deputy's position. We had a financial supervisor.
Yep.
We had a tax supervisor.
Yep.
We don't have any of those anymore. We had a plat mapping supervisor.
Yep.
So we had 3 other ones that we don't even have anymore. So everybody's picked up extra duties because we don't have as many people. And so that is a lot with ours. So that's those 2. The tax supervisor that Jimmy had, in which we did pass out some paperwork that he had taken to Jada and had requested all, was down 2 grades compared to what came back from a clerk supervisor. And, we kind of asked why, and somebody said they thought they weren't going to supervise. Well, if this goes into effect, that's what this person will be doing. They will be supervising the tax side.
And additionally, the comparisons that they made were made with more, they had more employees in the other offices that they compared against. We don't have that many employees, so that's where the fallacy was in comparing our people to other offices. We don't have that many employees, so that's why it got jacked up.
And so, and we did ask, so that's still one step lower than what the supervisors are in other departments. And then the actual other just 2 deputy auditors, and that shouldn't say deputy auditor clerks because we're not deputy auditor clerks. I don't know if it's because when the other deputy auditors were rated, they had something out to the side, which is kind of their specialty. But the other deputy auditors are cross-trained to do tax sales, plat mapping, all that. So they're required to be able to hand calculate property taxes. I'll tell you, in our office, I require them to know how to hand calculate property tax. You can put it into the system, you can do that, but if you don't know how to hand calculate it, you don't understand how property tax works, and how do you explain that to a taxpayer? Because if you've never really done it, it is not the easiest thing to do. And where's Senator Ford? Did he leave already? He loves me when I get on my roll about that. And so, we have state statutes, we have several deadlines. I actually have here for you 5 pages that we have of deadlines from the state. So they are all doing the same job and are cross-trained. The last one would be the payroll administrator. Jimmy, you want to speak or you want me to speak? I'm doing fine. Thanks. The payroll administrator, I'm not sure. Actually, we have 600 to 700 employees. That's a lot. And if you go out like Vicki did and check to see what a payroll administrator makes anywhere else for that many employees, you'll see that it comes back a lot higher than what's being requested in this grade. They also help with our gap. We go through IRS audits. That position has to make sure that we're following all the IRS rules so that the county is not going to get any type of fine. And we've been through an IRS audit, and that was a lot. State Board of Accounts again, with the grants, with payroll, watching what everybody is spending. She has to perf. We have supplemental insurance. As you get an invoice, you have to balance that before you pay that every month. So that was the change and request for the payroll administrator.
And I think, having been on a lot of these, paperwork-wise, department-wise, some of the ones that were addressed, when you looked at the paperwork, they had been asked to be upgraded to those grades and were just kind of overlooked.
And I have that paperwork I
And
can give to the other council members.
that's for other departments too. So, again, I felt like it was a lot of just kind of trying to dot the i's, cross the t's. And then we had all the other ones that we've done previous, correct? the changes and stuff are in there.
Yes.
Okay.
And none of these were out of line comparing with other departments.
Right.
I mean, there was no asking for above what another, it was comparison with the other departments that Baker Tilly had done.
Building maintenance next.
Oh, building maintenance.
Yep, that was my
We're
next
on
one.
Building maintenance. So that's just for the maintenance workers, and under the other classification with Wagner, Irwin, and Shealy, they were all considered LTCBs, and that included, some of the highway guys. So your highway, your building maintenance workers, and your deputy surveyors were all considered LTCBs. At that point, they all made the same hourly rate, and that's kind of how Wagner, Irwin, and Shealy did it, and so they were all considered the same. When building maintenances came back, and I know surveyors, but Bruce was able to talk to Kara and Jada and get his fixed before we got to this point. And that was, the comparison was, they had always been the same as highway. And for some reason, they weren't graded the same. So this is why this was brought to you, because the building maintenance workers at this point then weren't even graded the same as what the highway workers are. And that's not to what you adjusted highway to now. That's what originally came back from Baker Tilly. And so that's 4 of them.
Is that the last one?
That's the 4.
Okay.
And then
Information services, I think, is the next one.
if Joey's here, and he might, ITs, they did catch what he had asked for. This should be actually. And with his permission, it had come back, there was I think a copy and paste error on Jada's part. Would you agree, Joey? And, she actually had the position as the same, they were both senior network administrators. That's not what, Joey had asked for. He had asked for a network administrator, and what had originally came back on the first file he saw was what you see in red, and not the one higher. So he had asked that it be adjusted.
It's fine. Okay. I think that covers it.
I
Does that
think
cover it?
that covers everyone.
Parks office manager.
I'm sorry.
Is there an
Parks
office manager?
Parks office manager, park
Oh,
department.
Parks, yes, she had, and Kara caught that one, and that was supposed to be an office manager, position in
That was
Parks,
just a, yeah,
and,
As a clerical.
just, yeah, clerical.
I mean, that's what Jada gave, or, I'm sorry, Kara gave me that one.
Okay, I think that's it.
Okay. I think that does it now.
I think that does it. I don't
That's
know if
maybe
you want to
an
get into
optimistically
prosecutor and public
hopeful.
defenders.
Yeah, and we did those in public meetings already, so.
Yeah.
So those are recommendations, based on kind of, the subcommittee working on some of that detail. Those would, I understand, would have to be approved prior to us approving the whole ordinance, or,
Well, I mean, they would impact what goes into the final ordinance, right?
Okay.
So the ordinance that has been prepared, I think, if I understood Cheryl correctly, she has updated some of those to reflect what has happened, but detailing that is just committee action and not any action
Not
taken by the
action.
full council.
Right.
okay, so I think that brings us up to your part. I think this is what, we're kind of waiting, for, so I apologize, I've lost my page here. So now we'll look at amended salary ordinance, 2023, and I've asked, Michael Wright to help us with that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of words, a lot of legal.
So, the, every year in conjunction with the budget process, the council adopts a salary ordinance that governs how employees are paid over the course of the entire year. Obviously, with the information from Baker Tilly and what I understand, the desire to amend that, we have prepared a new ordinance that reflects that it is amending the 2023 salary ordinance based upon the report received from the professional organization that was engaged to assist in the compensation analysis, and the other considerations that the council is kind of oath obligated to look after as far as the fiscal impacts to the county. So the ordinance details, I believe it details the steps that have already been taken in 2023 regarding the Vigo County Public Defender's Office, the Vigo County Prosecutor's Office, the Vigo County Highway Department, those other departments that have been dealt with independent of everything else. So the ordinance makes clear that this does not impact those decisions, save the office workers employed by at least the Public Defender's Office and Prosecutor's Office who were not part of that discussion. So it has in there the language regarding new employees and where they would be rated for the first 6 months of their employment. And, you know, I just tried to address everything that, all the stipends, the clothing allowance, the other tangential pays, I'd call them, related to the assessor's office for various certifications. Those were incorporated, and yeah, I believe it to be in good form for adoption. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to address those.
Again, the totals page I gave you, if you have any questions about it, feel free to ask or give me a call if you have any questions on that. Everything is based on the 25 percentile as I was instructed to do for 2023.
So Cheryl, for the salary ordinance, addressing that, it was tough because as the subcommittee met, we didn't necessarily make it an official, it wasn't a suggestion, but it's where I think we'd like to go, for 25%, at, point for 2023, and starting with the July 1st. Is that correct, from what we suggested? Vicki, you were there.
That's what was
I think
suggested,
Nancy.
Jimmy.
Does everybody understand what Maria's saying? That
You can say, because you were at more of the meetings than I was. And you're more eloquent.
but you're the president. You know, we just cranked out as much money as we possibly could. The intent of the budget committee and the subcommittee was to make the employee raise this year as much money as we could squeeze out of the budget. And I think that it will be difficult to probably manage all of the other budget requests that we got from the departments. But the employees this year are the priority. It's just time for everybody to get what we can give them as much as we can. And so we decided that it, you know, it's 25% and the midpoint begins July. It begins in July. And so that's what it's gonna be, and it's a nice raise. It's a nice raise. I wish it could go all the way back to January. So that was the
And
decision.
that's the recommendation.
It's not
But
set in
it's not
stone.
set in stone
It's
by
not.
any means. And what we have to look at, and the other thing I'm gonna be asking Kara for, because I think it's important to see the whole package too, especially going into the new year, is continued amount of contribution to insurance, because that has risen over the years. And I think for you to see like the whole compensation package, I don't know that you all have ever received where it's completely broken down, or you have. I'm getting a yes, okay. But then the other part of it.
Marie, our payroll has started to put that out,
Okay.
out to the side, but it does take time to get that for everybody,
Yeah.
so that we can show that to you as a whole
Okay.
package.
You know, and reminding everyone too, I mean, you know, there was a raise this year. There was 4% raise this year as well. So, you know, that's to be considered also.
And, you know, obviously we have different budgets and accounts and things that we have to look at. And we have to also not just look at this year, but moving forward into what will be addressed in the 2024 budget. But then also making sure that we can sustain it. Because we could go gangbusters, but then the worst thing that could happen is then we get to a point where we can't sustain it, and then we're in trouble. And, you know, I value our employees, keeping them here. We need the staff to do our duties. And to me, that's the priority, but I also want to be able to keep funding, you know, the different programs and things that we have that serve our community. And so it's tough. It's honestly one of the tougher things I've ever had to look at, and I know all of us have gone through as well, as far as the salary study. I can stress it's kind of been an interesting process. You know, it could have been done in different ways, possibly through the commissioners and then us, but I feel like we have tried to really look at what we can. We know there might be things that we have to address, but that happens every year with budgets, and we just have to kind of move forward, and I think we're to the point where we just have to rip off a Band-Aid and go to it. So, Councilman Loudermilk, you seemed like you had a question. Am I calling you out there or no?
No, you're not calling me out, you're
Okay.
fine. Yeah, I guess I have a question, I'm just trying to understand where we're at. So, the recommendation by the committee is at the .25, right? Retroactive to July 1st, is that correct? What is that obligation at .25?
That's what's on your total sheet. It's broke down by fund.
The overall obligation?
The overall obligation for every.
Yeah.
Lump sum.
Well, you'd have to break it down. If you went only to July, you're looking at about 1.5 mil.
1.5 million.
I guess the concern for them, Aaron, was the general fund, and then some of the smaller ones, but the general fund taking the hit this year, and then trying to actually, they're trying to give the employees even a bigger raise next year is what they were looking at. And so, taking that big cash obligation from this year, then of course, you don't have that to take on for next year, trying to give them a bigger one. That's what I got from the committee.
So, when the committee met, were there discussions with the department heads and elected officials about whether, if given a preference, if they would want to wait until next year for the larger amount, or would they rather have it loaded on the front end? Was there discussion about that? There was no discussion about that?
Well, I mean, no, that's actually an interesting idea.
We did, the budget committee did.
Yeah,
We talked, you
the
know, I
budget
mean,
committee might have, but, as far as the someone, that's kind of an interesting, because you do worry too about going back, how that's gonna impact you tax-wise.
You know, we were concerned about the cash, you know, the cash balance, lowering the cash balance for sure.
Just so you're aware, if you're saying to do 25% this year, and then if next year that there's really not a raise, is that what you're saying? Or not much of one? Maybe a
What I'm
4 or
saying is if
5,
there
or
was-
maybe 4 or
if there was-
5% on
yeah,
top
if there
of
was
that?
discussion about
Going all the way back.
Because
going all
if
the
you
way
would,
back to January 1 with a larger amount this year, and then with the expectation for 2024 of not getting a larger raise.
Yeah, we
Was there
because I was
discussion
gonna say,
about
because
that?
if you
Yes, we
stay
did.
at the same amount, if they couldn't afford it, and you stayed at the 25 percentile, you do have some people that are still over that at this point, that wouldn't get anything next year, if you stayed at the same.
Sure.
I'm just trying, so, I mean, I
Right.
guess we could look at it and then maybe do a 4% increase over the 25 percentile or something, and you see where that gets you for next year. Or an in-between, and we have done
Because-
some calculations for in-between.
Right. I guess my concern, there's a couple, at the 25 percentile, not capturing those that are behind, far behind, for one. And for two, just going back to July 1st instead of January 1st, since we've already committed to January 1st on another department and what that looks like.
It will, from what I understand, it will impact. And I think we have to look at the options, and I understand, you know, we're going with that too. But if you do go back to January 1st, and I think that the department understands that's had that happen, it could impact their future rates for next year. Am I thinking right on that?
Well, let me just say also, you know,
Well, they're well
I
aware, they
They're-
will be.
I always try to take the opportunity to go outside, you know, the walls of the government and speak to the folks. And I you know, talk to the guys down at what they call the hometown bank, now Terre Haute Savings Bank, have been very good financial advisors, I find. And, you know, they recommend not breaking the bank on something, because you can't anticipate what we might be facing in the future. You know, what kind of huge expense we might have. You just don't, you know, if the roof of the courthouse falls in, I mean, we can't have a bake sale to pay for it. You know, my concern is always taking care of these folks sitting right out here. I want to give them every dang penny I can give them. That has been my goal, to be on this council and take all the crap that we have to take for next to nothing that we make. I don't do this for money. I do this to try to pay people to work and keep them here, and keep them so they can buy groceries and gas, and that's not been easy for them to do. They need as much money as they can get, and that was what we tried to do, is give them as much as we could pay, and it's a pretty good raise. It's a pretty good raise. I wish we could have gone in January, but you know, the guys at the bank and the trust department, and they're geniuses, in my opinion. They're a hell of a lot smarter than I am, and they said, you know, don't lose your mind and think just because you got $1 million, don't give it all away. You got to keep some money back. So that's what we tried to do.
I don't dispute any of that, being a good financial steward, taxpayers' money. I don't, but we're talking about $1.5 million. I'm just trying to figure out what makes sense for everybody. I mean, we're talking about a $1.5 million storage facility just a little bit ago, right?
Right.
Aaron, it's gonna be more than 1.5 if you do everyone.
Sure.
You have to take into consideration on this salary ordinance, you've already done the public defenders and prosecutors,
Right.
and you did those to June 14th. If you do anything different, you'll be hitting it big. Does that make sense? If you do anything different with them.
Right.
And
So I think that's why they were looking at going at that same date, although the highway got it.
I think our attorney friends would pass on that.
I have no opinion on that. I mean,
I'm just
that-
trying to make sure you know that.
The start date is pretty, I mean, it goes without saying, in my opinion. it's going to be more expensive. It is a question of resources, and, you know, that's ultimately the council's bailiwick, is to try and manage those resources to the fullest extent possible. So it's the salary ordinance now provides that no changes are made to the departments that have already been assessed, I guess, by the council regarding 2023 salary adjustments. So, yeah, if there were something different to be done, obviously the council can direct that.
And I would say additionally, you know, we tried to address the prosecutors and public defenders to pay to handle the crime problem in the community. That's a pretty big deal. You know, we gotta have lawyers for the defendants and the criminals. I mean, and the community, for heaven's sakes.
And
We couldn't get any lawyers to work for nothing.
No, I would agree that
Couldn't do that, for sure.
there was a special circumstance that Mr. Modisett and Mr. Roberts alluded to over the course of several meetings before you. And, you know, as you alluded to last month, you all knew that that decision would impact the public defender's office, because those.
It's the law.
That they are supposed to be with parity. Yes, there's supposed to be parity between those two offices, in my opinion. So the question now remains, you know, yes, everybody else needs that decision made for 2023, as you've all alluded to, and the ordinance to effectuate that decision is ready, and the decisions related to when everything starts and all that have been left blank, so that when those decisions are made, they can be easily inserted and the document finalized and executed. So.
And I believe that our auditor would agree that a decision has to be made next week. I mean, because of budget, finances, and other things. So as far as we are at the end, thank goodness, but, you know, we had to look at and address, trying to keep things, you know, parity, which is a new word I learned over the last year. And also looking at areas we couldn't fill. And I know that includes several areas. It's just the economy right now as far as jobs. We have openings in a lot of areas, but we addressed what we could. And like I said, I think we're to the point we have to make a decision. It's not going to be an easy decision. It's it's not a popularity contest by any means, but we have to do what's right so that we can continue to go forward and keep our staff and keep what is sustainable in there. And so, I mean, it's the will of the council. The subcommittee makes their recommendation based on the numbers and things we saw, but obviously we're missing 2 people tonight as well.
Yeah.
So those are things that are going to have to be addressed next week.
And I just reflect on last year, your budget committee came up with a big hefty 2% raise. So we upped it to 4%, so we were a little bit generous too, so it is what it is.
I support the 4%, if you remember, Vicki.
Yeah, but I remember you pointed the budget, Chairman.
So, well, we can look at last year and so on, but we need to
I'm
move
talking
forward.
about now, not last year, and I
I
think
bet you would.
that's what these people care about right now.
Well, they cared about it last year too.
I guess the unfortunate thing, Councilwoman Thies, is the fact that what's just been brought to light, I suppose, and I wasn't thinking about that, so we do have to make a decision next Tuesday. It's unfortunate we just had the committee meetings last month. It really is, to hash this out.
Well, and it's as we were getting stuff in too. It's not, part of it was, it's just been working. The progress I feel that's been made since January has gone on. It's gone back and forth through many changes. There were just random errors that we found. I have to really, you know, appreciate Cheryl and others who had the eyes on it to catch some of the things that we did, and department heads who brought it to our attention. So it's just been, it's not like we got it and it was a perfect document. Had it been a perfect document, we would be long done with this. We are to where we are, and I think making that decision and moving forward and having the budget committee address some things for next year is where we need to be. And again, I think there's several things in mind. There's pros and cons of doing it, you know, July or January. I think, you know, you have to be cautious too. I mean, what sounds good might get hurt with some taxes and next year's positions and that, or not positions, but status on raise. So that concerns me. So, I don't know if you have a lot to process by next week. So, all right, well, I'm moving on. I shut my book. I used to talk. Shut my book. All right. I have a feeling we might have a few. Public comment at this time. If you are speaking and addressing, please keep it to 3 minutes. It's, I know there's other things people want to see and listen to. Yeah, and if you need to leave at this time, please feel free. This has been ongoing. Get my timer out. I run by bells at school, so. No public comment? Do I have any public comment at this time? Oh, if you do, raise your hand so I can see you. Okay, come on. Are you okay? Sorry. No, she dropped something. No, nothing exciting like that.
Exciting.
Okay, and if you remember just to state your name and we can let everyone get out.
My name is Elizabeth Stiverson. I am with the Vigo County Clerk's Office. I am the supervisor of our bookkeeping department. First of all, I want to say you've probably seen my face at several of these meetings for several years now. I can't imagine how difficult the decisions are that you guys have to make and the pressure that you do receive. I've always had a lot of thoughts, never have come up to speak my opinions, but decided tonight was the night. Many of you know the clerk's office has been asking for raises for a very, very, very long time. Before the Baker-Tilly study even came up, I think that is what started. I know that we had the WIS study prior to that. But it was the clerk saying we didn't feel like we were being paid enough because we were losing people on a continual basis. And we felt like our office needed to be paid closer to the people that we worked side by side with in the courthouse. We were told at that time that we couldn't make that decision. Sometimes it was budgets. We had to wait for the budget. Sometimes it was, oh, now we've got this study out there. We have to wait for this study. We have been waiting a very long time. We have been asking for a lot. And where my frustration comes in is how many times we were told no, that it was going to come down to the study. It was all about the study. We have to wait for the study to come back. And my concern at this point, because I want to stay with the clerk's office long term, I would love to retire from the clerk's office. The clerk's office has been one that has been underpaid. We are below low. I think there were 52 people in the county that are below low. The clerk's office is below low. We knew that. We tried to tell you that and ask. So it is frustrating. And my concern is if we make all of these changes to the study that you guys wanted, are the clerks going to end up below low again? Is everybody else, because nobody likes the way that it came back, we're going to elevate everybody else, except we probably won't for the clerks, and we're not going to be able to keep anybody. And going forward, we're going to be right back in the same position again. So I just would ask that that gets considered when you look at changing things. That opens a door. because we have felt that way for a long time, and I'm not taking anything from any other department. We all work hard. We're all important. We all do very important things for the county. And it does feel like some departments mean more than other departments do. And that's a hard pill to swallow. Right now, what it feels like for me is you're asking me to come back to work tomorrow, even though on paper, you know I am paid below low. But you want me to come back and do 100%. But you don't want to pay us what the study that you guys wanted said that we were worth. So just please think about that before you do make a vote next week. All of our jobs are important, every single one of us in here. Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, look, you stopped. That was impressive. You stopped exactly when it went off. I don't know if you have an inside timer, but it's a cute little, nice. And I did appreciate spending time with you guys this summer. I do see the work you do. Another public comment? Come on. Oh, I spent a lot of time with you. You are fine. We're just jealous.
I just was wondering, the 25, bringing it up to the 25%.
You need to say your name first.
Oh, my name's Terry Stranahan. I work for the Vigo County Assessor's Office.
Okay, thank you.
I've been there going on 30 years. And I'm glad to hear that my coworkers would get, the 25% because that would bring them up to what I make. And then, but then I don't get anything. So I was curious about longevity. Like what would that look like? Would you be looking at longevity? I mean, I don't want to take away from my coworkers at all because, I'm one of the people in there that wouldn't get anything, maybe like $10, because I've been there going on 30 years, and they've been like 20 years and 15 years, stuff like that. So I was just curious as to, or more like, would you maybe take a look at longevity and see if there's something you can do for people that's not going to, make it to a raise really for us, but longevity would make a difference,
I will put that down to make sure we look into
And
it.
I was gonna say, I know obviously the final decision will come from the council, but I know longevity remained in the salary ordinance that I prepared. So there would still be differentiations.
See, I've even maxed out at that.
And I understand that, but I'm not, but the previous longevity schedule that was incorporated for 2023 already remained unchanged. So it would not be, longevity would still exist in Vigo County as it stands now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other public comment? Okay. I just wanted to recognize, this is my public comment, I guess. Some of our officials in the city and county were recognized last night by labor leaders, and that included, she left, was here earlier, City Councilwoman Tammy Boland, our own Vicki Wager, and also Todd Thacker. Recognized by labor, and I just wanted to recognize that for community service and dedication. So I thought that was a good thing to celebrate. So on that note, I will seek a motion to adjourn. Anyone want to make it? Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.